Today we're ranking the main villains from the Avatar The Last Airbender and the Legend of Korra franchise. Both series are fantastic and complement each other perfectly. Throughout their journeys, the Avatars face a long line of terrifying enemies, with each season featuring its own main villain. 3 villains from Avatar and 4 from Korra makes 7, so today we're ranking the 7 main villains of the franchise. That also means Zuko, who is technically an antagonist in season 1, won't appear on this list because he's much more of an anti-hero, and by the end of the story he becomes a true hero. Overall, he's far more a protagonist than a villain. Minor villains like Combustion Man won't be included either. We're focusing strictly on the 7 major antagonists. Let's get started. Korra's uncle Unalaq, the Northern Water Tribe's leader, is an awful man. He claims he wants to reunite the Northern and Southern Water Tribes under his rule, but that's not even his true objective. What he really wants is to become the Dark Avatar, by fusing with the evil spirit Vaatu, whereas the Avatar is bonded with the spirit Rava. The biggest problem is that it's never really clear what Unalaq expects to accomplish by merging with Vaatu. His stated goal is to restore spirits to the world, but Vaatu is obviously pure evil, and it never seems like Unalaq has any actual plan for dealing with the consequences. In other words, Unalaq has very little to offer as a villain, and his master plan simply isn't well thought out enough to make him truly a compelling antagonist. The most interesting part of his arc is actually the civil war between the water tribes, and the fact that he is related to the Avatar, Korra. Commander Zhao is the main villain of the first season of Avatar The Last Airbender, and he is fine. Nothing more than that. He is a Fire Nation commander determined to prove himself to the Fire Lord by capturing or killing the Avatar. The very same mission assigned to Zuko. This creates a rivalry between the two, with Zhao clearly being the more ruthless of the pair because he lacks any sense of compassion. Still, he isn't impressive in combat, especially against Zuko, nor is he all that intimidating. His greatest accomplishment is killing the Moon Spirit during the invasion of the Northern Water Tribe. But almost immediately afterward he is dragged into the spirit world. At the end of the day, Zhao is simply an ambitious military officer trying to make a name for himself without much additional depth, backstory, or charisma. Kuvira is honestly a disappointing final villain for the Legend of Korra. A powerful metal bender from the Earth Kingdom, she proclaims herself the Great Uniter and seeks to bring the entire nation under her rule. Her motivation is understandable to an extent. As a general, she is tasked with restoring order after the chaos Zahir created, by reuniting the fractured Earth Kingdom. And she has no intention of handing power over to a prince whom she considers less capable. The problem is that she never really does anything we haven't seen before. She commands a robot army, wants to dominate the Earth Kingdom and then annex Republic City, simply because it once belonged to the Earth Kingdom. The fact that she wants to transform the kingdom into an empire is already proof of how inflated her ego has become. She's a competent fighter, but even then she relies heavily on mecha suits and eventually a giant robot to win battles, which feels rather underwhelming. Her personal connection to several protagonists is decent, but it comes out of nowhere after the 3-year time skip. She suddenly goes from being a capable soldier to a full-blown dictator. Speaking of a dictator, Fire Lord Ozai is the embodiment of absolute evil, the Sauron of the Avatar universe. He wants to conquer and destroy the entire world. He is perfectly willing to burn the Earth Kingdom to ashes. In terms of raw power, Ozai is an outstanding final boss. He is difficult to defeat and Aang has his hands full facing him during the final. The fact that he's also an abusive father who completely ruined both of his children only makes him even more despicable. At his core, however, his motivation is rather one-dimensional. Ozai simply wants to end the war by ensuring the Fire Nation wins. The problem is he didn't even start the war, that was his grandfather. And many of the Fire Nation's greatest successes came thanks to Azula, Iroh, or even Zhao, rather than Ozai himself. That raises the question if he really was as capable as his reputation suggests. He also only receives substantial screen time in Season 3, meaning he doesn't truly feel like a major presence until the final season of ATLA. Zahir is the kind of anarchist who wants to plunge the entire world into chaos. Together with the Red Lotus, he forms one of the most dangerous groups in the franchise. They're all masters of fire, earth and water, and after the spirit world is reopened, air as well. That's right, Zahir is probably the only truly evil airbender in the entire franchise. He can fly, and despite being completely new to airbending, he becomes exceptionally skilled with it. He can enter the spirit world and murders people by suffocating them. Absolutely terrifying. His motivation for wanting to end the Avatar cycle by killing Korra is compelling. You can understand his ultimate goal of creating a world without rulers or powerful figures capable of oppressing others. A philosophy that actually is somewhat similar to my upcoming number 2. Zahir is also an incredibly formidable physical opponent. And I actually don't mind that they keep him alive, so he could return in Season 4. It fits his ideology in a way. We also shouldn't forget that he permanently scarred Korra by poisoning her, leaving her with PTSD and temporarily confined to a wheelchair. A brutal villain indeed. When I watched The Legend of Korra Season 1, I was immediately hooked, largely thanks to this incredible villain. In terms of intimidation, no Avatar villain, not even my number 1 pick, is as terrifying as Amon. Everything about him is mysterious, from his past to his appearance. He constantly wears an eerie mask, and somehow he possesses the ability to remove or at least suppress someone's bending, something that should only be possible for the Avatar. As the first season unfolds, countless questions hang in the air. Who is Amon? Why does he want to rid the world of benders through the Equalists? Where do his powers come from? Mystery is one of the most effective ways to make a villain frightening, and Amon has it in abundance. It's easy to understand why Korra is terrified of facing him. As a viewer, you can feel the tension. What if he actually takes away her bending? What would she have left? Unfortunately, the reveal at the end is a bit weaker than the build-up. Amon turns out not to be a non-bender at all, but a waterbender who is skilled at bloodbending. He deceives his revolutionary followers to keep them loyal. He's still incredibly intimidating, but once the mask comes off, he loses just a little bit of the mystique that could have made him my number 1. But nobody takes Azula's crown. Of all the villains in ATLA and Korra, Azula is without a doubt the most memorable and the most charismatic in all the wrong ways. Azula is Zuko's younger sister and Fire Lord Ozai's daughter, and she's ruthless. Maybe not pure evil like her father, but she was raised to be a cruel, tyrannical psychopath. Azula is a master fighter, but her strength doesn't come only from her firebending. She's also a manipulator who uses both her brother and her friends whenever it benefits her, only to discard them when they're no longer useful. She secures some of the Fire Nation's greatest military victories with the fall of Omashu and Ba Sing Se, and she's frighteningly effective at commanding her soldiers. Because of the way she was raised, Azula gradually descends into madness by the end of the series, and during her final duel with Zuko, she completely breaks down in a full-blown mental collapse. And even then she's dangerous to fight. A fantastic villain.